Is it a useful term, fake news, catch-all phrase?
You know, I'm not so sure, Zainab, because I feel that obviously misinformation, propaganda, disinformation have been long-standing components of information warfare. Fake news has recently gained prominence vis-a-vis the American election, but as we saw in that clip, when politicians use it as a catch-all phrase to cover political spin, stuff they don't like, then it gets murky. So I think there is a debate to be had about how useful the term fake news is. Politicians, media outlets, partisan media outlets push out agendas, etc. But let's not forget that WMDs in Iraq was also fake news. Theresa May says on that clip that Russian Today is a state...
Weaponizing information.
Weaponizing information, fair enough. But they're also saying, she's saying that, through state-sponsored media. We're sitting on a BBC platform that's state-sponsored in the UK. We have to be able to sort of see that when we're looking at it from their point of view, we don't seem to notice our own flaws and weaknesses in the Western setup.
Need to rework the business model?
Absolutely, I would agree. I think that not only fake news for many reasons, but the business model is a fundamental threat to democracy and to media in a country like Pakistan in particular. I mean, that's where I know more examples of. So big business houses control the majority of media in Pakistan, all media in Pakistan, that dominates all the space, dominates all the narrative. And they don't hesitate to print fictional news, to run fictional news on their electronic media. And the quality of journalism in Pakistan, and let me tell you, we have some of the best journalists in Pakistan. We've managed to stave off 3 military dictatorships with the help of some of the most bravest journalists, and they're in my country. But with this commercialization, with this, less with the ads, but just sort of the big industries in Pakistan who have the money and the government doling out cash, what's produced on television is more acting and spin and propaganda.
So you think that there's more sensationalism in the news
and
business?
The poor, credible journalists who, for all their lives to do this, can barely make ends meet, aren't getting the same packages at these done-up actors who read off the teleprompter. I mean, I look forward to seeing how this goes forward in a country like Germany that is so careful in protecting freedom of speech and fundamental rights, and it'll be an interesting place to see how this sort of regulation goes forward. Same with France. But just with the minister from Bangladesh, my gut reaction is the fear of undermining freedom of the press, especially in young democracies like ours, with a tendency to authoritarianism, and why I much prefer and I'm really excited about the idea of things like Wiki Tribune, because a lot of citizen journalists in Pakistan, that would allow sort of credibility and authenticity and help with the training. I like also this Africa Check and what's the Ukrainian one, Stop Fake, where journalists have got together. This is sort of this traditional PolitiFact angle of checking fake news. Perhaps this will develop into a more community-driven.
So you want the grassroots to kind of police fake news rather than governments doing it?
I would say I'm more comfortable with something like that.
You think that's enough, though? I mean, for example, you've got elections in Pakistan this year, and
and I'm sure, but we've historically been dealing with fake news in election cycles. Bangladesh and Pakistan dealt with fake news even back then. So there is that component, but I personally do not trust my state to be regulating this.
But when you've got really detrimental effects and harmful consequences of fake news in your part of the world where it can result in death.
No, absolutely.
Don't you need a heavier hand than just grassroots policing?
No, absolutely grassroots policing on its own. Well, one important component I think that we're not addressing is education. I think we need to relook how we're teaching our kids in school. I don't remember being taught about journalism in high school or anything. You'd take an elective at university. If you're taught about sourcing, if you're taught about bias, if you're taught about how to research and check multiple angles and see, and also taught what does fake news look like? So I think education is a really strong component in countering.